This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, you count.
Okay.
Does somebody want to be the chair of this meeting, I guess?
I guess
Call
I'll
me.
volunteer. We'll call the meeting to order. Monday, September 20th, 2021. Board of Historic Preservation of Arkansas City. You probably can't hear me with this mask on.
We hear you.
Okay.
Those things are really sensitive. So we want to look at the minutes of the last meeting?
Yeah, let's see. So the minutes of the last meeting was called to order. Roll call, Kevin Cox, Phosphor, Charles Jennings, Kaylee Lawson, and J.W. Lozano. Oh, this is this meeting, isn't it? Let me get back to the last meeting.
On page 2.
Okay. Okay. This is the minutes for August 16th, 2021. Call to order. Present, Kevin Cox, Phosphor, Charles Jennings, absent, J.W. Lozano, Kaylee Lawson. Staff president, roll call was principal planner Josh White and public information officer Andrew Lawson. Also present were applicants
Good luck.
Jing Sing Lee and Zhu Jian Ni. Consent agenda, meeting minutes July 12, 2021. Do we usually go through the minutes or do we just take to a vote to approve them?
Typically, we just take a vote to approve them.
Do I have a motion to approve the last minute meetings? Anybody?
So moved. So moved.
All right, I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Kaylee and Charles. Is that Charles? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Let's see. Shall I read the review? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, very good. And then today, we'll do a roll call. Kevin Cox, Phosphor, Charles Jennings,
Yes.
Kaylee Lawson,
Yes.
and I am present. Did I forget anybody? Items for discussion today. Discuss Chapter 5, Parks, Recreation, and Natural Historic Resources. And that looks like about all that's on the agenda today.
Pretty much. Okay. What was that? Okay. Okay, I'm going to kind of just go over what this chapter is about. Of course, the comprehensive plan is being actively worked on by the Planning Commission. This chapter is multifold. We only want to talk about a certain part of it today, otherwise we'll be here all night. But it does cover parks and recreation. They've done extensive discussions on that. They have not, however, done a whole lot of discussion on historic preservation. They did kind of do a little bit of it. They even came up with the halfway decent goal. I didn't actually put that in here, I think. The one that they came up with. Let's see if I can find it.
Regarding the pool, it's actually now the largest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Garden City downsized dramatically.
Anyways, the goal they came up with was to encourage development of a certain number of buildings over the next several years. So there was something that did come up. in there. But I kind of wanted to go over what's in here besides that. We did do a survey back in 2013, and there was only one question that had anything remotely close to the historic preservation side of it, and it was just about cultural programs. And it wasn't very decisive. It came up with 43% of the respondents were neutral about how they felt about our cultural programs. It's not very helpful. There was 31% that were satisfied. So there was, other than that, there really wasn't a question about it. The rest of those questions are geared specifically to parks and recreation. Let's see. There was a comment, though, that I thought was interesting. It said, city also needs to invest in social and human capital, Big Brothers, habitat, arts, historic preservation. And then it goes on to talk about a major recreational project. But there was one person that specifically pointed out that historic preservation was an important part of our community. So it's there. We just didn't do a really good job in the last plan about talking about what it means to do historic preservation. There is a section, it starts on, if you have the packet, it starts on page 16. Section 5.8 of the chapter. This section opens up with, basically it's just an excerpt from the nomination form from 1983. I kind of glanced through that. I don't really see any issues with it. Like, I don't think there's any bad information in it. Unless somebody sees something in those 2 paragraphs, it's totally off the wall.
Well, the Gladstone Hotel doesn't exist anymore. It got torn down.
That's true.
I mean,
I just need to note it somewhere.
That probably what we should do is just stop quoting that and just rewrite this to where it's more accurate. That's probably what we can do. Because you're right, that is a little misleading. Now, it did make it into the 2013 plan.
I mean, I kind of read through it. That's the only thing that really kind of stood out to me was that it talks about the Gladstone, but it's not actually there anymore.
That's an interesting point too. When we did our brochure, didn't we have a little section there about buildings that we lost?
Yeah, there's like 4 of them, I think
It might not be bad to talk about that briefly here. For one thing, to make people realize that if we don't protect our buildings, they will eventually have to be protected. So I think we can mention them. And since we have the brochure, it's really easy.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, once we got past that, we chose to spell out several of the key buildings. So that first one is the Burford. And what I chose to do in my edit, which is what I put in the packet, was the one I've already started editing, was the description directly from the brochure. Because I thought it looked more interesting, and I think there was some information that was a little out of date in there anyways. I think it really didn't talk about the renovation either, but the brochure did. So I thought that was good to have that in there. And then it used Ireland Hall, or the old high school, and that one I modified it a little bit, pretty much just did the exact same thing. think the language that we used in the brochure was a lot more friendly to just quick reading. There was, and some of the information I think was actually wrong.
In the original?
Yeah. And it was where, I don't know where this information came from. Maybe it, well, it said. It might have just been the old brochure. Yeah, there was something. No, I guess it was 1974. Oh, I know it was. It was purchased and renamed by Cali College in 1968, but that's not actually true. It's 1971. That was the one I noticed. It was added to the register in 1974, which was interesting. I didn't know we had any register listings that far back, but apparently we did. So that would have been nominated quite a bit sooner than the Congregational Church, which wasn't added until 2002. If you want it, that's what it's for.
Trust me.
Oh, it wasn't until
Hello, Bob.
2005. That was added.
Oh, wow.
But the same thing with it. I just took out what was in there and put what was in the brochure instead,
Yeah.
because I thought that would be more interesting and again, easier to read. Somebody's just flipping into the comprehensive plan and opens up this section. They would just want a quick read. They want to know why we think this building is so interesting. So those three buildings are in there. Should we spotlight any other buildings?
Which three?
The Burford, the high school, and the Violent Church, or Total Congregation. However you refer to it.
What is this for? It's for the comprehensive.
If you were reading the comprehensive plan, or let me rephrase. If there wasn't a brochure, what do you think that people learning about our community should know about? Which buildings are most important?
No, Josh, it took us 6 months to debate that last time so we could do the brochure.
We're just talking about churches now.
No,
Oh,
just any of the buildings that you feel are really significant that we specifically want to take from the brochure. And one thing I can do is reference the brochure, and we can call it an appendix to the plan too.
mhm.
I know it's not in the district and it's not on the register, but I think this building, just because it's a center of activity in town. I'm just thinking places people need to go. This one in Burford are probably the two.
Well, the thing is,
Traffic.
just because this building is not on the register doesn't make it any less historically significant.
Well, I'm probably getting out of my lane, but I think you guys need to make a recommendation of getting this building into the district as part of the plan. So that might be a way to sort of lead ground more.
Talking about City Hall.
I mean,
Tough because, yeah,
it should be in the district already.
right.
The thing is, getting it into the district is going to be a whole lot more difficult than just listing it.
Those three are.
And then we ran into what we ran into.
If it had been in the district, we could have got that whole elevator paid for.
Yes.
Instead of putting it off for 4 years, we could have had the roof paid for.
So
A lot of internal renovation probably would have got paid for.
I don't know if anybody actually knows, because of course 1983 or whatever, but why wasn't it in the district originally?
I wouldn't be shocked if some city manager thought, oh, it'll be a hassle to deal with historic
Because
codes. I don't want to deal with
We
it.
have multiple buildings on the side street that are actually most of the historic district includes the side street.
We enforce rules on people downtown that we don't follow ourselves things, and those never go well for us in public perception. So I just think it's a good policy to follow your own guidance. But more to the point, I just, for the taxpayers, right, we put a lot of tax money into this, so we could have recouped, what, 80 to 90% tax credits.
No, okay.
A number greater than zero.
Number greater than zero, I agree with that.
That's,
No, we could have got 25%.
That's still better than nothing. And we're basically following most of the codes anyway.
Well, and I don't think that there's anything that's been done to City Hall since I've been here that probably would not have. I think that everything we've done. Because
It would have gone to them for an exception, like you guys can turn down, renovation or work at City Hall and try to maintain the character, which we did. I mean, they tested the paint all, Foss is the same group that did the Burford. They checked all the paint colors going back to match what it used to look like. So it was done with historic integrity.
well, and the spaces like this aren't really historic per se. And so if you change the offices around, it's not really that problem anyways. I'm sure this room has always been an assembly. So changing that might arguably be an issue, but
Bottom line, it's not a big write-up either, so won't expand the chapter too much, but that would be the one I would have. I'm not more than.
I think that's a good idea to try to get, I think that's a pretty easy action. Try to get City Hall on the National Register individually listed.
I think it would be a good thing.
I do too.
Like Andrew said, it was good for the goose, good for the gander. If you expect other property owners in the city's historic district to want to participate in preservation, the city hall's got to be the leader. That's all there is to it.
That's one of the things that we wanted when we were doing that other grant. We tried to do that every time.
Well, I look at it this way, if you guys don't advocate for it, the commission's free to disregard it, of course. At least it's in writing that you considered it.
That was on Brenda's list for potential expansion.
So the research has been done both by Brenda and it was part of our brochure, so we
Yeah.
added even more to it.
I guess I'm
It'll
just
be a piece of cake, I think.
a little bit saddened by the fact that some of the other buildings are nice buildings, but the current ownership have no interest in taking that extra step.
Starting to change. So
I mean, we can still have a goal to talk to people about expanding the district, but
You have a goal in there about advancing, that was always the intent. You could also put in there an action on, the thematic district for the churches, because that might be more
Right.
attainable in the short term, and maybe it will.
I mean, I think it's gonna take us a while to convince enough people to
Any
expand the district at large. Although, I mean, David Allen wasn't completely against it, which, and there were a couple people that weren't against it back when we did it, so maybe.
Well, and I think that church thing actually would fly too. Because I know that, you've worked with Sacred Heart a little bit. First Baptist has shown some interest, Central Christian has shown some interest.
Didn't Colonel Lynch get that one submitted before he passed?
Yeah, everything's approved, it's just waiting.
It has been approved, Christian Science.
I don't know,
Everything
because
on
I
the
think
file
he
in the back,
passed away, kind of.
but everything's been submitted, checked off, the photos.
That was Colonel Lynn.
Yeah, I think he would have succeeded getting that individually listed.
Yeah.
Without a thematic, he would have run it. Actually, I think all the churches could actually do it individually. So that kind of silly when you do them all. The only other thing besides go into a little bit more detail about those goals is there's a list of structures that just simply says the name, where it's at, and the year it was built. However, we discovered that some of these years are not
say half of this is actually.
So what I would propose is I'll go back through the brochure.
Well, the Google sheet is pretty well up to date. Yeah. I need to double check a couple. There's not a few different deals.
It's the Isabel building.
Oh, that's,
1619, that's.
That would be the Burford.
Yeah, we need to change the reference.
Isabella built, yeah, that was
I would list them.
one of the two that was taken down to make
Was it really?
that in Highland Hall.
This is just.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
The only thing about this list is it's not in any order. It's not geographic and it's not chronological. So I would like to see it
Yeah.
chronological.
And not alphabetical either.
If you want a geographic ordering, that's what the brochure's for, it walks you through them. But I'd like to be able to quickly go, ooh, that's the oldest building, and then write down the list, the order they were built. And that would not be hard to do, we just need to double check the dates. So, I mean, Josh.
And Carney Studio, that is on the list, isn't it, or not?
Which one?
Is Carney Studio on the historic district already?
Yeah, it's in the district.
And if-
Which is why I was-
If Otis were still there, that should be another building.
I mean, it's on the district, which is why I was saying that it doesn't make any sense to me that City Hall's not in the district when all the side streets have built, like the library, Cornish, they're all in the side street, but they're still in the district, so.
Right.
I'm sure.
Now, at the time, City Hall may have arguably not been contiguous.
1919?
My other question is why is none of this block here, the west side is the 100 block north? None of it is. Now, we did discover that I think maybe one of those is not contributing. Where the security first is, I think that one was still considered contributing. If it was in the district. it was
Right.
contributing. But the rest of them have undergone too many changes. Obviously, the bank made too many changes. It looks nothing like it would have.
No,
I believe the building's the same.
it doesn't even look like it did when I was a kid. It's just when it was first built.
How about the lawyer's office?
The note that I put on this list too is should this list only include things that we put in the brochure? Because we picked those buildings because they were the most interesting.
Now, we did cut a couple of buildings for space. Like I think we left out,
Yeah.
Walter's office.
didn't we
that's
leave
yes,
out
and-
like costed 2 or 3 buildings that we had to
Yeah,
cut
that's
because
what
we
you're
didn't have
going.
enough pages?
Let's say if we got on their research.
He seemed more interested in some of the others.
He's not contributing.
He's non-contributing.
I don't know that I'd want to list non-contributing buildings we didn't include that we haven't researched because the only dates we're going to have are going to be.
No, but I think
This is a long list.
it is a long list.
Some of these buildings, I don't even like the Louisiana building. No idea what that is. I mean, I know the addresses, but
Only there's an old name where they tore down the building at some point and put something else there. And
maybe.
Well, 125.
Building this is RCB Bank. So it looks like they've got buildings in there that aren't even still here.
Yeah.
For example, the Colorado building's obviously not there. It's now the Howard building, Howard Block.
That's what I'm saying. This is.
I don't know where,
Like,
maybe I need to go look at the,
this part is wrong. Then it goes alphabetical. So it's all over the
I
place.
guess I didn't have enough involvement in this chapter when I went through it.
Yeah, I'm going to say, let me draft the chart and I'll shoot to Josh, put it in your next pack.
one is the Woolsworth building that they're talking about in here. The one that's now, was stage, or is this the building that burned
Wallpack.
down?
No, well,
Because Didn't
You're
they have
right.
to
No, that was burned. I mean, yeah, that half of that block was burned.
Yeah, the 1921 is definitely not accurate.
Yeah, that building
No.
doesn't look anything like that anymore.
It's not.
So they just pulled like the original buildings.
Something like that.
I think it needs to reflect what's currently in place. If someone wants to research the history of the burned buildings, that's what they're searching for.
Well, not only that, but like earlier I mentioned that we could do a short little section about the buildings that we've lost, and this is what happens when you don't do historic preservation. Something to that effect.
I mean, this
I can word that up nice.
all needed something. You guys can even pick it next month. This is something better to discuss than this, because this is a mess.
Yeah.
So obviously that needs to be totally revamped. I think it is important, at least my personal opinion, is that a list like this should be there. Because again, we're trying to get somebody's attention for like 2 minutes of their time. So but we need to give them just as much information about it as we possibly can in this short thing. And if they want to have more information, that's when we turn them to the Kansas Historic Resources Inventory. That's when we turn them to our brochure. That's where this whole plan is going to be. It's going to refer to documents that aren't active. But they'll be basically like these. Because you can't possibly put everything in the plan. It's just like this. So thinking about some of these goals, I wrote down some we've already talked about, like listing City Hall, looking at the district, expanding it, contracting it wherever it needs to go, because that's what the survey said. The thematic church nomination, because that's what the survey said to do. And these other goals that are actually in there, I'm sorry, the actions that are actually in there, the goal itself is probably good. We as a city want to promote maintenance and preservation of our resources. We probably want to continue to assist owners of historic properties in identifying and assessing their resources. And encourage maintenance. Some actions can't be quantitative. It's just, we're running an open something like this. That's worded kind of funny, but that is like the purpose of this board. Is to ensure that number 3. That's when we can look at some of these goals that are from the municipal code. Again, this is from the CLG ordinance that made us a certified local government. It's just when we redid our code, it actually got put into its own chapter in the municipal code. So that's just what this chapter is. We've done one, we have bylaws. We have recommended that survey keeps going on. We did a survey. That's the one that's actually done a good job. 3, we've actually identified them with our brochure and with that survey. I don't know that we even need to put those in there as goals because we've already done it. This one, however, we do need to do. And well, we've got the 3 goals I already said earlier are actually doing 4.
On this one, have you guys seen what Winfield has? They've got a plaque on every historic building. Go walk downtown Winfield sometime, get a chance. And
Can't do that, he'll burst into flames.
Hmm?
I said, you can't do that, you'll burst into flames if you walk downtown Winfield.
You can't do that.
That's the way I think about it.
It doesn't have a lot of info. I think it's got just the briefest of history, but then it's got a sketch of what the building looked like. And in some cases, it's an older building that's not there anymore, but that would be kind of neat. But I think they hired Winfield Main Street probably did it. along with their tourism group, whenever they did all that downtown stuff.
We're working on establishing Main Street too.
Yeah, I think they hired a group to do it, but there may be Main Street funds there for marketing purposes.
Such there is.
I think it's a good goal to deal with later.
I have a question
Go ahead, Charles.
on form and format. And you reference the goals that we can speak of in the past tense as being accomplished. You're not just going to strike that. Do we reformat that and put it in and we have a section of brag points or something of things that have been accomplished? Otherwise, you just keep a list of things we haven't done, but we don't celebrate or boast about what we have done. I think we need to when we say they don't need to be on there, they need to be somewhere and celebrate something.
Chapter narrative.
Yeah, that's kind of like what you were saying at the planning commission meeting about the health section, about remembering what we've accomplished. So I agree. I think that needs to be in every chapter. So I'll make a note of that. Note accomplishments.
You even have a section in each chapter that's stuff we've done since the 13 plan.
Yeah. I liked it when he said it the other day, a couple months ago, whenever it was. And I like it with this one too. Because if the plan just becomes nothing but goals and doesn't celebrate anything, it's going to be difficult for people 10 years down the line to figure out what in the world we're doing these for.
Yeah, that's true.
See, so talked about 6. Recommend the board of commissioners inform and educate citizens concerning the historic.
That one is kind of already in action. One of the ones that's actually in that 13 plan. It needs to be maybe reworded. But number 1 there, assist the owners of historic properties in identifying and accessing public private resources. That's kind of what that is. 8 is not a goal, that's just what this board does. We don't need to put that in. And 9. This is not goals. This was duties and responsibilities of this board. So there's going to be a couple things like that in here that. Same thing as advisory to fire. That's one I wish we could do more of. We did it before COVID. Remember we did that one meeting at the Burford. We were trying to get people to get on board with the expanded district.
One thing that I would suggest, I don't know if it's on there or not in this, is, I heard that at that conference you and I went to, is we could have a 1 or 2 sheet just form for building owners and people like that, or people that are renting historic buildings. Just the main things that they need to keep it historic. I'm not really saying this well.
You
know what I mean?
What you're saying.
Huh? You do know? Yeah.
Well, my note was like a cheat sheet or something.
Yeah.
To help the.
Well, to simplify, because every time we have a public meeting, particularly when the people, I mean, no, not criticizing people from Topeka, but it seems like we get into the weeds on different codes and stuff. And we should have like a simplified version of how to keep the buildings, so it doesn't sound so ominous.
Make it more accessible for people.
Right.
Opposed to
Well,
a lot of jargon.
when I came before the city commission, when we were trying to renew our agreement to do the reviews locally,
Yeah.
that was something that came up, like one of the commissioners said something to that effect. And I'm like, these are not regulations. None of them. They are guidelines. So just like any other guideline, there is some flexibility in how we
Right.
interpret it. But you gotta look at the guidelines. You gotta think about what.
But even if we could summarize the guidelines and make it more, so people don't think that they're just going to be burdened with a bunch of paperwork if they want to do something to
I think it's important also that we
maintain it or whatever.
make sure that the property owners are aware that the historic board can modify the recommendations of the SHPO to said our needs.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Maybe
Yeah,
not as well as
that's
what
well
you did,
said.
but basically, this board has the authority.
Yes.
We're actually given authority because of an agreement
Right.
to not go word for word what we did it last month with the sign,
Yes,
where we said, well, yeah, the guideline says you're not supposed to have a lit box sign, but we also have like 30 other lit box signs already in the district. What's the problem? So we made that, you guys, I should say, you guys made that decision. Well, us, Charles did. But
I think you guys can remember when I wanted to put the vinyl windows in paper drugs some years ago, and we had a big
Was that a different?
go around because it was outside of the SHPO's guidelines. But if you look now, which is about 6 years later, all those wood windows they put into Burford, as they complied with the SHPO guidelines, are rotted out. Look at my windows, they look like the day we put them in. And nobody can tell if they're vinyl or wood.
well, in that case, I think it probably went well, but I've also seen some examples where somebody did something.
So, yes,
I hate to call out a particular building I mean, but
I know the one you mean.
208 South Summit.
Mm-hmm.
I was up in that just recently. And when you're even up in the top floor, like, what was this? Why did they do that?
Yeah.
which one is that? Is that the mall?
Antique.
Antique Mall?
That's what.
And I believe I called some individuals on that decision and questioned who gave that approval.
Oh, ultimately it was city commission. I mean, it was appealed. That was bad example,
Yeah, sure is.
working with.
I think if those improvements still follow the guidelines where you want to preserve the architectural integrity of the original building, the materials you use shouldn't matter.
Also keep in mind the Burford, since you used that as an example, the real reason that they did that was because they had no choice, because they were getting experts.
Yes,
That's, if
A
you're
total-
going to do that,
total waste of money.
then you are obligated to follow those guidelines.
Exactly. And still a total waste of money.
Probably in that case. I won't argue against that. So was there any other ones on there, Andrew, that you saw? No. Most of the rest of them, again, they're just about the duties. They need to be in that place, but they don't need to be.
Right.
Yeah, I just want
This
to,
one cracks me up. This is one that kind of came up when we were talking about it again. This section, the whole time I'm thinking, but it's in the ordinance, it's in municipal code that we're supposed to be doing surveys. And when I went through the process of getting the grant to do that survey that we did in 2017, well, I started it in 2015. And this was already adopted, but the commission at the time didn't think it was important to do surveys. Even though it was in here. And it came up again when I did successfully get them to approve the grant application the second time around, but it was different. So it can't count here. We, as of now, do not have an inventory that's local. We established the ability to create a local inventory or local register, so to say, but we've never actually done it.
What exactly would that entail?
Well, probably a similar process where you have a public hearing, you talk about the building, you learn what's significant about the building, and if it meets the guidelines that the board sets, because it's not national or state, it's just what you feel is significant, then you put it on. Now, there's not a whole lot of incentive to being on the local register because
We don't offer anything.
we don't have grants, we don't have any tax credits, we don't have anything like that. So that's part of why we've never really pushed it.
But let's say somewhere down the line, a generous donor gives us something to be used as a grant, we could do that.
And there's some other, like I think Wichita, for instance, I believe they have a program. Local incentives to get you interested in doing it. And in some cases, a building is just not eligible for a state or national register for various reasons. Maybe it was altered a little too much. It's significant to the local area. We've probably got a few buildings that kind of fall into that. They're significant. They're 50 years old, for instance, but maybe they were altered within that 50-year time frame, made a non-performance and made them not. Might be a good way to do some houses too. Some of the different houses around town that are significant.
If we had a local register.
Would probably be one way to do it. But you'd also want to be as detailed as what the state requires. You're going to want a little bit of information. You're going to want to see pictures. Figure out why in the world it's even important to have information. There's a couple, like the old Denton Center. That would be one that it probably should be recognized, but it's not recognized.
The one that, the Mancy one.
The man, yeah, the,
And the other thing about that is you could force the reviews now.
or the
They were
Durhams.
all there.
Durham, that's the one. I couldn't think of their last name for some reason. It was there, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
I was trying to think of, when we went to Lawrence the time, they had a whole block. Those are mostly architecture professors and people. A Street, where the first house I remember growing up. And the 12 and 1300 block of A Street was kind of like that. But since then, they've kind of built these clunky big brick things. But it was a very much a 50s and 60s, mostly 50s look on both sides of the street. I don't know.
Funny, a house built in 1971 is 50 years old.
Yeah.
So technically eligible for listing.
There's still some nice little neighborhoods around, but I don't know if any of them would.
We have a lot of neighborhoods where the 50s and 60s probably should be recognized.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Brad Peak is one of them. It's
But
a
that was,
50s and 60s neighborhood.
although that was mostly 60s, because I remember when it was just fields in the earlier mid 50s. But you're right, yeah.
It probably should be noted because of the style of housing that is used throughout, and it still is. It's got its original integrity. They're all little ranchettes.
Mhm.
There's been some modifications to some of them, but they're mostly ranchettes. Popular in the 60s and 50s.
And slightly off topic, but our house is built in the 40s. We live at A Street. And I was going through some drawers and I actually found the blueprints. In a drawer.
That's
Wish I
pretty,
could find
that's
the
pretty cool.
blueprints to my house.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
My house, I think we determined that the original structure was built in the 1880s, sometime in the 1880s, but
Wow.
can't point
Where
it.
are you? Where are you?
I live across from Roosevelt.
Okay.
The county has it in 1873, but the people I talked to are like, not that old. But it's still a 19th century house.
Mhm.
But the problem is it's seen so many modifications
Yeah.
over the years that the modifications would now be considered historic. So I actually could not, if I was following the guidelines correctly, I could not restore that house back to its original.
Mhm. But we would give you approval.
Or the old Howard House, which is, that's supposed to be the place where the original, like the cabin was or something, the Norton Brothers. You know where that is on, between Chestnut and Central on B Street? The one that's kind of angled off, it's not quite facing the street.
Across the street from the church.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Central, First Baptist.
Yeah. There's several really awesome houses along B Street.
Yeah, that's another good neighborhood. Even older than the 50s, obviously.
Yeah, mine is that old, and then the house right next door to me to the south is some, actually there's like three of them in the block that are all kind of historic. And then there's a more like a mid-century modern one. But then there's the one just across the street from it that's giant palatial thing, the courtyard and the pool and all that stuff.
Down by Roosevelt?
Yeah, it's northwest corner of Spruce and Lee.
I think I know the house you're talking about.
It's on the market right now.
Really?
Hmm.
It needs major work.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's some pretty cool old houses.
I don't really have anything more to add to this discussion.
I'll turn the meeting back over to our chairman, Foss.
Wait, did you
He opened
share
it.
the first part?
Yes, sir.
I'm so sorry. Somebody sent me an email and I got involved in that. Should have been, I had every intention of being here by 5:30.
It happened.
No problem.
Yeah, well, is there any more discussion then? I guess I would ask, Josh, are you coming back to us on some? Or what's the next step on this? I'm sorry,
I can bring it back at some point in the future before it. We're kind of in this weird thing with the planning commission. We're going through each of the chapters, but I haven't really brought anything back to them.
Okay,
So that's kind of,
there's no hard and fast deadline yet? No.
I wish there was, because we've been doing this for almost it has been a year. We've been working on the plan, but it just keeps getting dragged. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah,
Because since we're doing it as staff, sometimes I don't have the resources.
sure.
So we'll probably adopt it in the spring. The whole thing
Mhm.
will be done in the spring. We have one more big topic that we have to talk about before we'll kind of move into formal adoption. That's land use.
Oh, yeah, well, that's
That'll be fun.
That's it.
not fun. Yeah.
We're not quite done with
Yeah.
infrastructure and transportation too. So we're going back to this more too next month.
Does that have to do with zoning and all that? Do like Houston does, just no zoning, everybody just hodgepodge. I don't.
You know what's funny about
You're
Houston?
in the county if you want to do
Yeah.
that.
They claim that they don't have zoning.
Yeah.
They have zoning.
Yeah.
It's just not the traditional zoning that you see in other cities. What they do instead is they have neighborhood plans. The neighborhood plan basically tells you the same thing that zoning does.
So if you're gonna do something in the neighborhood, you have to follow their plan.
So they have zoning, but it's just not traditional zoning.
Yeah,
I think that that pretty much covers that. Andrew had mentioned wanting to talk a little bit about time capsule. And we talked a little bit about that at the last meeting too.
yes.
You want to update them on the brochure grant?
Yeah, I guess I can also say that we're working on finishing the grant, that printing of 2,000 brochures as Zach testers. They haven't finished it yet, but
Mhm.
we made one tiny little correction.
Yeah, was it a year, wasn't it?
Printing.
Here's
Yeah.
the year.
And so that will be changed in the new thing. And when it comes back, we'll get it over to Visit Arc City.
Mhm.
And probably need to talk to Jill Hunter about it to make sure that she understands what we were doing there.
Mhm.
Pam was totally on board. Make sure it's going to happen.
Yeah,
We'll talk to Jill.
Yeah, they're gonna need to hire a new assistant too.
So they're
yeah. She's
changing operations.
changing the guard, yeah.
I don't think that they'll have any heartburn. I know Sandy Randall Dock Museum is still very interested in having brochures down at the museum too. So.
Good.
Which means it'll also be at the Belle Plaine Service Center on the Turnpike.
Mhm.
And everything. They've got it there too. All right, I don't know if that brochure is there yet, but the old one definitely is.
Have
I'm
you,
trying to figure out is who makes sure it gets out there where it needs to get out there. I believe it was Pam. But, so her last day is actually Thursday, but she's gonna be staying on to help Joe stuff and available for like a year at least. So
She's not disconnected from the community.
we'll get it figured out, but the bigger issue is they don't have an admin because they just need someone to probably take them to different places and the board will get set in. I don't know.
We'll make sure they get distributed. But that grant, we actually found out that since we didn't hire a consultant to do the app, that we can be reimbursed for part of Andrew and I's time.
oh, good.
So we're still gonna get, I don't think it'll be quite the full 11,000, but it's over 10 something. I just couldn't quite figure out how to get it. They didn't want to push too hard on that reimbursement, but it's gonna be really close. So, which is kind of nice. It's not directly gonna help this process, but it did, we spent a lot of time working on that grant. So it'll help with, if nothing else, the city finances after it. Which is never a bad thing.
Was that one of the questions that John Shellman might have asked you? How many hours we put into?
He did. I should say that too. He did an interview with me. He asked me how much the grant was for. And then he asked me how much time was spent on it.
Yeah.
And so I looked at what the match was that I was using in your volunteer labor, and I divided it by the number that I used, and I came up with 200 and some odd numbers.
Wow.
That is,
And so that's what I told him that doesn't include,
you
and
probably did 200 hours for yourself.
Well, yeah,
that's just a pure estimate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think mine was probably more than what I put.
So I don't know how he'll word it.
But what I'm concerned about is that he gives credit to everybody because he also interviewed me, you know. And David Allen's the one that had this idea, by the way. And he started to sort of come to me and he said, wait a minute, we'll just have somebody interview you. And I said, John, they
I
do.
don't know what the article was.
You know that, Andrew, they shoot from the hip. And so I'm a little nervous about what comes out, but we'll see. I'm glad they did talk to you. Though. I said, I don't have those.
Yeah, I recommend doing as much as possible by email.
Yeah. Well, I also emailed
So there's
a pretty long thing today because I found a few things that I forgot to say. Like, for example, he said, what resources did you use? And I did mention Brenda's survey, but that was in another context. So I said, be sure to this is one of the really main resources that we used. This was her deal on the Kansas Resources Inventory.
That was a big one. But we also used a lot of the newspaper archives.
Yeah, and I said that, yeah,
A lot of newspapers.
That's where the stories came from.
Yeah.
right. That's right. And those fire maps are pretty cool too. I really
I
like them.
love those
I love
Sandmore
them. Yeah, I
fire
like
maps.
those.
Those are so cool. Okay.
So anyway. Okay, Charlie, you have anything to add? Mr. Jennings? Okay, he's on mute again. I'm sorry.
He's talking, but we can't hear.
He is talking.
No, I don't have additional. I just I'm glad we caught that. We're doing a lot of work. You know, to make sure it doesn't just, we don't call it done and it goes away. You know, this process is important, and you guys' time is important. So I want to make sure we do have a log of that. What we've set as goals, what others may have set as goals, and that have been accomplished, even though those goal setters might have moved on to other things.
Sounds good. Any more discussion?
Yeah, on the time capsule, I just didn't know if any of you are interested in being more heavily involved in that. It's going to be happening pretty quickly. I think you will have one more meeting before we wrap it up, but probably right after car show, we're going to start publicizing what we're doing. As I understand it, and there was a whole bunch of stuff rattled off the last visit our city meeting, so I apologize for not having complete notes, but Pam's working on like trying to get people in our state to write letters to like their future relatives or whoever's living here when it's open the next time.
Okay.
I want to kind of highlight that, which that's easy because people can just email. I think we're still intending to have
They just,
people.
are these people that are like kids now and they're, or is it somebody that,
Yeah,
huh?
you could write one. It'd just be about how your life is now.
Oh, I see. I see, to whoever.
What's missing in the one we opened is
Yeah.
there's no
Context.
mementos of what life is like. There's a few items, but not, it's mostly, newspapers and
Yeah.
directories and stuff, which is all
Right.
well good, but a lot of people were disappointed there weren't just items.
Yeah,
So I know Jill's gonna be going around to the downtown businesses and other businesses trying to collect,
Sure.
something like a magnet or a pen or something and get all that in there so there's tangible artifacts of our time. But they also want to include this personal aspect as well so that they get a sense of what people's lives are like. And one big thing that they came out is they don't want this to just be a pandemic time capsule. We have to have some pandemic stuff in there.
sure.
More going on in the community than that. They want
Might have something that would show that we're researching Etzanoa,
Yeah, nobody has to know stuff, brochure will be with that. That's not really the issue. It's more trying to get the extra flavor from people.
people actual
We're
story.
gonna try to put out some publicity so people know, so that they can drop stuff off. I'm ready to continue that through Arkalalah. Probably even have like people that bring stuff if they just come to town for Arkalalah. Contribute to that, and then we'll do it that Friday of Arkalalah. So I would definitely plan next meeting to discuss what our role in that ceremony will be.
I do have a question and thought. You start talking about this element of it in context, and of course technology evolves so much that it may be impossible to do. But I would hope that I wonder, let me say it that way, I wonder if there's a way that we could capture the community celebration on Sunday morning in the park and have that to be something. I just don't know what format, what context you could use that you could be.
Yeah, We are gonna be putting a flash drive in there, hopefully in 50 years or whenever somebody will have access to the building. I mean, I don't know, that, who knows? But, you know, if there was like magnetic tapes or something and the one we opened, I don't know that we could figure out a way to get to the information. So you'd be running a risk with that. And that's why I'm advocating when you still have printed products and tangible items. But they're wanting to put some drone footage of what the city actually looks like in there. I think they're working on that. We got a video for the Arkalalah color run. We got a video of the Arkalalah events. I don't know if anyone shot video of the church service, but I'll ask Pam. And then we could probably dig up some other lines. I'm sure there's some video from the kickoff party downtown. So, and then I need to ask Chris, because I've been wondering anyway, I believe they filmed the entire concert that we played. And I would like to get something for them, maybe not the whole thing, but you know, Gary wrote a piece for our city's 150th birthday.
Yeah, we should definitely put a copy
I'm
of
gonna try and get a sheet music from him for that. And we've got we didn't actually give them out at the event, but we made a program that will include to commemorate that the event was held and all that. So yeah, there will be stuff for the 150th. Plus we've got the flyers that we're giving out. There's some other printed products available too. But if you know of anything else, certainly we would be open to looking into including that. I mean, we've got quite a bit, but that tube is huge. We're talking mostly small items and a lot of papers. We'll probably seal all the papers inside PVC, cap the ends, and everything will be in plastic too, and then put it all back in. But and I showed you guys the ones that were here last month. I showed you the registry site, so we will register it. That way it'll be, if none of us are around in 50 years, someone will be able to go and look and see where it is when it's supposed to be opened. We contact about it. And I think we'll put the contents in there as well. So
I don't anticipate being
yeah, me neither.
here. I'd be 89.
I know, I mean, there'll be a marker out there too.
It'd be interesting to encourage these people that want to write a letter
What-
to their future offspring or whatever, to do that in cursive on paper rather than a printout of an email.
That would be more personal.
I would think so.
If anybody can read cursive.
One of,
They can't read mine.
Reconstruct that is.
other thought, we should, before we bury it, we should have somebody with great skill, artistic skill, to paint the capsule to look like a dinosaur fossil.
I'm not sure how well paint would stick to that. It's pretty rusty as it is. It's in pretty good shape, but it's definitely just a shell. We'll want to make sure we double, triple seal everything in there. I'm still kind of, I haven't looked at it recently, but there are some guidelines in that society website on how to
do that.
your stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll try to make sure we bring as much down.
Pretty darn good though.
Yeah, and we're not actually gonna bury it at that ceremony. Like, we'll have all the items out for display, and they're gonna talk about what people are putting in. So, you know, the packing and burial process will occur later. But that will be sort of the cutoff for people to break stuff. Will be that Friday event. I think we have to cut it off sometime.
When does this take place again, Andrew?
Arkalalah.
So it'll be Friday, October 9th, I believe.
Yeah,
Probably in the afternoon.
Halloween's on Sunday.
When's the kiddie parade? We'll probably do it after the kiddie parade. I don't know, I gotta double check with, like I said, Pam and Joe already made the plans, and I just know some of them. So anyhow, if one of you guys are really invested in wanting to do some of this, just get with me and I'll get you connected with them. I think you should have a role in it. I don't want to see Ozark City just take it all over. But I also want to use their talents to our advantage. I don't have time to go into businesses and do all that, so I'm going to choose one to do it. But you're going to do outreach anyway, so it makes sense for her. Pretty much it. So that's the big project for the next month or so. Like I said, I'll try to get that building directory chronological and have it to him for next meeting, so you guys can at least decide which ones you want in that list. Chapter.
And I will try to type up what we talked about tonight and actually put it in the document.
I always try to do that. I never always succeed.
Yeah.
Like, Thanks.
All right. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are
Great
adjourned.
meeting.